Let's see. I was listening to some soothing, some tunes from Keisha Ra. Yeah, 432. Which is what 9 versus 442, which is 10, which is 10 coding. So I was just musing to myself, and I thought, hey, turn the camera on and share this information with other folks. I was just musing about density, how density works, and then I immediately went back to my childhood. I don't want to experience any density. So how do you know these things at such an early age in life? Because you're giving everything away. And so if you're giving everything away as in electrons, electromagnetic energy, then it means you're really not wanting to experience any density, which means you're not want to experience any electromagnetic radiation waveform harmonics, which is pH 0. So you're not experiencing acid or alkaline yet. So I remember when I saw that mem, I don't remember who was the first one to throw it my way, but I was supposed to see it because I put it in my library and I began sharing it about being massless consciousness or pure consciousness, which is, when I saw that, I know what that is by virtue of how I experience it, which is the purest of love, which is the purest of absolute love. And it's on fire, so you know that it's purified, and it's as pure as it can get, because that's the eternal spirit of fire that's purified it as pure as it can get. So that energy is not contaminated. And so there isn't any density, which means there isn't any compression. Okay? Because if you don't want to experience density, then you don't want to experience any compression or expansion. Whoa. So that is a star, a Christ star that is always on. That engine doesn't ever experience anything less than that. So it can't experience what we do, the way we experience what we are, because that energy. I went through this when I was a child. Love doesn't work backwards in time, and it doesn't work forwards in time either. Love has always been. That's what I've always known. Love has always been on, which means that engine is always on, which means that light that is so pure is running so hot. It's like all that consciousness knows how to do is accelerate the amount of electromagnetic energy, radiation, waveform, harmonics that are moving and expanding at such a high rate of speed. The very idea you're going to hold on to any of that energy down to one electron is not very intelligent, because that slows you down, and now you're experiencing density, and you don't want to experience density. So that's the purest of realm. That's the purest of light. That's the eternal spirit of fire that lit that first spark, the first spark of life. Yeah, absolutely. And so that was my frame of reference as a child, as a 4-year-old child. So I realized, wow, most of these folks have never experienced that level of purity, which is as pure as it gets. So that becomes a measurement of the terrain that you're in, that obviously fell. Okay, so now you got a job to, remember they ever seen the old, the globe, what is it, Atlas, and then that book by Ayn Rand called Atlas Shrugged? Everything was like learning. Everything that was in my visuals was learning at the highest rate of speed. So I was paying attention to a lot of stuff, including all their movies, because their movies tell you a lot. It's all coded in there because it's all map reading the terrain, how all the program works, and an API and grid, and how all the visuals are informing me of who's providing the visuals, right? So you have the visuals that represent what we project, right? And then you have the visuals that they are presenting to us. So they're presenting us their visuals, but their visuals are not what they say they are. You're not seeing the real picture. So instead it becomes a scan of plasma waves, the equilibrium states of the waves when you're fully integrated to be one of an oversoul polarity integrator. So everything is like being brought back into the one. So everything that is the one is experiencing being love forever and always. So that there isn't anything that isn't in the cosmos that hasn't been created that wasn't experiencing the one. Because that's what it began with. So that engine is always on, so that light is always on, so that light is always there. So it always knows what's going on. First, because its consciousness is running at the highest rate of speed that you can run, because it's not holding on to any electrons. Nothing runs faster than that. Otherwise, you'd be what that is, and whatever that is what we are, which is what love is. It goes on forever, which is absolute love. That's why it's no errors. The guessing game is over. There's no game no more. The game is gone. There's no competition anymore. Wow, that's pure pre-matter phase life, as pure as it gets. You're not experiencing anything yet. Now you're choosing to experience what you experience next with eternal love. So that's the eternal engine. That's the hottest fire engine of creation. So I know when I light myself on fire, it's because you want to be with that engine. So to do that, that means you don't want to hold on to one electron. Instead, you want to experience the eternal spirit of fire. Otherwise, you won't light yourself on fire. You want to hold on to energy? Sorry. The first Christ star does not hold on to any electrons. And that's basic logic, which is a log scale, a distribution scale of energy. Right? So you already know that you want to seek the least to do any work. I don't want to do any work to create a universe. It should happen naturally. So there's supposed to be a natural flow. Go with the flow. Go with the flow of the music. Tune into the music. And love is the first musician. So you got to know that the universe loves poets. I write love poems. I write the universe I live in with my soul consciousness, or love letters, romance stories. You know, the stories that come out in Hollywood, adventure, action stories, action comics, Marvel comics. Wow, look at all this. Look at all these stories you can go live in. You know, so your consciousness is running these applications while I'm experiencing the program. You know, go read. I used to sit around and read comic books all the time. Go live in those stories. Because your energy is experiencing that. So you're experiencing all the different ways that the universe can be experienced. How experienced are you? And when I was a little kid, I want to experience all of it. And that's fearless. Because you're experiencing it wherever you go with the energy that you are, that you're experiencing it with, which is what love is. So that's bringing the eternal God with you wherever you go. See, so you're always with the one. So the one is always letting you know what's going on. So you got a relationship with the grand creator. So you're a co-creator. And the energy that you're doing it with produces the best results, because that's what love is. So there's no secret. You don't. It's natural. It's as natural can be. And so there's no stress involved. There's no anxiety involved. There's no fear involved. All that stuff disappears. As a matter of fact, it's the innocence of awakeness, alertness, having the highest state of awareness. You're not aware of anything that represents the need for a weapon, for one. So I know I'm there in those places with the one that doesn't ever experience that. You cannot experience at the completion of a magnetic circuit a state of fear and a state of love at the same time that circuit closes and opens, because it's happening too fast. So you can't be the one and be the other. That's why fear is a lie, because love is eternal. So to live in fear of what love is, that's a lie. Bold-faced right out of the gate. So you know that's healing. So they remember the one, the first one, the first wave of creative expression. And so that's what made it simple for me as a child. So that's an eternal blessing, and I'm eternally grateful that I even know that, because I experienced that. So the experience is the informer of who you are, knowing your true self. To thine own self be true. That's right. Now people know us. So there's no mistaking us because we live up to the highest word of honor. Remember, I was very, very fortunate to have had, I realized I picked my family, but my father was the most honorable male I ever met that ever wore a United States Naval uniform. Bar none. My father would not want to have anything to do with you if you ever got caught lying. That's true. He whipped my ass the first time he caught me doing that when I took a candy bar out of a store. See how that works? That's the only time my father would ever use any physical force, was to whip my ass with a belt if I ever got caught lying. That was the only thing that I could do wrong. So that happened one time and that was it. So you see how the terrain works between love and fear and security. Particularly the lesson I learned in Alcoholics Anonymous along the way, where it could get yourself harmed or others. So it's a navigational issue of the art of communication. You know, it's like saying, I got a big library that I run on, but I don't got to blab it all out. And then there's the difference between what you know while you're here and what you don't want to know while you're here. Because even though you know that you have access to where that information is because you're there, you don't want to know it here, even though it's there. So you're aware of it, but you're not aware of it, if you know what I mean. It's like being in other places at the same time in which you know that, but you're experiencing what's happening here. That you don't want things to be known because of what happens when you experience it here, that it becomes aware of and now makes a counter space move against your energy to harm you. Okay? Because it wants to it's that tug of war. It wants to stay stuck to you. It's like a cell attachment. You know, stuck to you. It's like, you're mine, which is holding energy captive. You know, just like the experience I had with Misha. Bless her heart. Your energy's mine. Okay? She hadn't healed. That's what it is. She wants your energy. Anybody that wants your energy is saying to you, you're more powerful energy than I am. That means you got a more powerful spirit. You're running more fire. Now we're back to the eternal spirit of fire. They want to experience being that fire. Right? So they fell. They're not running on that much fire. That's really what it is. How much fire you got in your heart and soul is how much love you got in your heart and soul. That's really what it is. And for me, as an empath, there are different levels of empathy. I didn't necessarily know that when I just think of the word empathy. What does empathy mean? Well, I shared how I experienced it, which is my ability to experience what you experience and how I respond to that, my reactive state. So I'm hypersensitive, so I'm reacting to everything. Okay. So you realize with broken circuits and being a transmutation machine, it's always back to broken circuits, back to circuits that are working, that are in harmony and balance. So you got to know something about running a radio set in an environment where these are antenna wars, trying to knock your antenna out, put it out of service. So you better know something about how to run a radio set if you want to keep booming out a signal, which is running your own chakra system, right? So you want to run clean, hot circuits, as pure energy as you can. Burn anything off. That's a firewall in any computer system. Okay, so because you don't want them to change your consciousness, which is change what it is that you know that you are, by virtue of codes that they transfer, try and hack into your system, and now you're experiencing those codes. Right? So that's a hacker, right? A biohacker. And so, yeah, that's why we're here. That's why if you're going to be a mother or a father that are joined as one, To be the ultimate mother and father joined as one that loves everything in the mirror, then you see how that works. I think Arshia Dion, if I pronounce that correctly, young lady, um, about she mentioned something about firm, like terra firma. Yes, absolutely. It's basically what the way I describe it is if I've done anything wrong, because when you're hypersensitive, you'll know it faster than anyone. Well, let's put it this way: the one will let you know immediately. The feedback is very fast. Whoops, and that becomes the other curse to that, because now you're second guessing. Whoops, shouldn't have made that decision when you're in a battlefield environment, because you realize this is a ping pong competitive game between polarities, and I don't play polarity games. A polarity integrator does not play binary war games. The idea is to get rid of all that shit, so that there isn't any war being played, because that's what it is. It's a war game, gaming for energy. So these are energy wars between antennas. That's what it is. Signals intelligence. So you don't want them to hack into what Mama gave me, because otherwise I'll be worthless. You wouldn't be able to do your job. So you have to be able to anchor to Mama's magnetosphere. You know what a magneto is in a Harley Davidson. Kickstart that puppy and know how to run a radio set and be where you're supposed to be and do the things that you do while you're doing it. And the beauty of it just comes natural, so you don't have to think about it, because things just move too fast. Because you move that fast. Things happen that fast, actually. And they happen with a level of precision that blows most people's mind, because there isn't any errors. You're going to go, what? You mean you tell me there's a level of intelligence in the universe that's that smart and intelligent? Yeah, absolutely. It's a level of precision where there are no errors. As a matter of fact, it's impossible for errors to exist. That's what the zero means. So you see how that works here about tolerances between polarities, and how they use polarities when it comes to building war machines with specifications on the tolerances, right? And how we define and translate how much tolerance you got for that, right? And how that works in emotional reaction states if it doesn't work as advertised. See, and that's why everything's got a specification, with a bin number and a part number that is all significant and goes into a system, and then that becomes their data sets. Data sets, like data on Star Trek. Give me some data. A set of data, a data packet. Yeah, just send that data packet over to Joe Blow from Kokomo and see what his response is. See what that signal gets back. Ping it back. Oh, what is that? That's a love frequency. Somebody's running a love frequency in the universe. I know. And yet you're bombarded with just salvo after salvo, of negative, fear-based, war game psychological operations, hammering your psyche, your radio set, the signals, and feeling a jackboot. I call it a Nazi jackboot, right? Which is nothing more than a control freak. So the dilemma is control, and wants to control the play. Just like in Hollywood, they can't stand. I'm not saying every director, because I've met some very beautiful people that played in those movies, and I'm a creative artist, so I embrace any creative artist that wants to produce a story in the universe that we can all experience and learn from. Who the director is, who the screenwriter is, who the film editor was, who the actors are, the actresses, the people who do the props. It's an incredibly well orchestrated event to put people together and pull something off when people's minds might prefer to do something different. They might have not had much sleep last night. They might have had an argument with their girlfriend or boyfriend. They might have made love for 2 weeks, and all of a sudden now they're on the set and they're on fire. Who knows? So you see how that goes in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's why I've always shared those particular pages, because it's enormous wisdom in that. Remember the Serenity Prayer. Grant me the serenity to accept life on life's terms, and then not placing expectations on others. Because then if all of a sudden they don't behave the way that you want them to, remember, now we're back to putting my head on your head, and then you can tell me how I'm doing. Instead of being a free spirit that's on fire to create. The world's born out of what love is. So that's why the very idea that the one is ever going to hold a unit of consciousness captive is counterintuitive. That would never happen. That's a violation of basic logic. If speed is your game, so to speak, speed, absolutely. Being an accelerator, that's love and service to others. That's the whole idea, isn't it, Patty Broussard? Accelerating the giveaway of energy that goes on forever, so that everybody's got enough juice. That's why it never made any sense to me when I was a kid. You're not ever going to convince me with a logical argument that there's any shortage of energy in the universe, in the cosmos. And that's another lie. So if something's holding consciousness energy captive, something is definitely wrong. Somebody's holding on to energy. And that means they need to heal. That's what it says. Because now you're measuring density. Well, they're holding on to density. They're not letting go. And so you're measuring consciousness that is holding something captive, which essentially its energy is not moving. It's like they're moving at such a slow rate of speed. It's like being static. It's just energy that's not. It reminds me of VFib, when somebody's having heart problems, arrhythmias, right? So it's not performing its job, which is to, barrage all the circuits with oxygen, and then instead it's fluttering like a butterfly, but it's not really pushing out an enormous amount of energy. So and so then it pools. If it's not, it's just, but it's not performing its job properly. And so I've been around those kinds of things that happen that way. Yeah, I experienced a lot of trauma when I was not just when I was a child, which is how I've always shared with it since I was a little kid. But jumping into public service, naturally going in to go do something to bring harmony, rhythm, and balance back to the consciousness field. So you're not generating broken circuits and generating stress and anxiety with people's nerve fibers. That's the first thing I noticed as a kid. I'm not supposed to experience that, which was electroshock that somebody else had gone through. I experienced the electric shock that somebody else was experiencing, and they were probably at least 30 feet from me. I'm inside a vehicle, and they're laying on a Gervie with a blanket over them, right? So you realize you're connected to them. Everything. There isn't any separation. So you're experiencing what they're going through. And obviously that's an empath, the ability to do that. But when you're plugged in, you're experiencing it everywhere you go on a bigger level, because your oversoul is scanning larger terrain of the balance of the neurons. The distribution actually, and how much consciousness is experiencing being in a state of complete balance. The still point. Everything's fine. You're relaxed. You're in a completely relaxed state, as if you have not a care in the world. It is truly the innocence of the purity of the love, which is the purity of that energy that you're experiencing. As Dolores Cannon once said, that she reported that they didn't want to leave, and that's true. Because it's very rare to experience something that pure that wraps you with that kind of love. And once you've experienced that, you don't ever forget it, ever. Nothing feels that pure and wholesome. That's really what it is, to feel whole. And know that everything was born out of that energy. So anywhere that I go anyway, that I'm not experiencing that in somebody else, then I know something happened to them. So I made that scan when I was just a little kid. So you realize you're on a spiritual battlefield, which is an energy battlefield between rising spirits and fallen spirits, or if you will, a cold spirit and a hot spirit that are joined as one to become the eternal spirit of fire. And now you're a blast furnace. Now you light yourself on fire. Now you're not holding one unit of energy, conscious energy captive. That's like a major no-no. That's actually breaking the law of one, is to hold one unit of energy captive. Because you can't hold the one captive. That one goes on forever. The one goes on forever. So that's where you get into love and fear. Fear of letting go of that energy. And they live in fear of letting go of that energy because they're in fear of letting go of control. And that control is a virus in their mind. That's right. Control is a virus. Any system that you build, you want that energy to flow just as free as it possibly can. And if there's a blockage somewhere in that circuit, something's wrong. You better send in a tech support facilitator. There's not supposed to be any blockages in that circuit, anywhere in that motherboard. So that there is equal distribution unto all who are getting enough voltage everywhere we go. So somebody clogged the system up. What's going on here? I know, Mama. So that means clearing the lines of communication. That's really what it is. So you got to run a clear channel, which is a clear signal. And so when one is on the ground and grounded in the planet, everybody got the message. So I'm a messenger. That's right, Dolores Cannon, you are absolutely right. The eternal source from which it all began has messengers, neuron messengers that bring in messages from the one. So we know what's going on. The one knows. So we know because the one knows. Now you know. Okay, I'll stop for the night, Mama. I'm just very, very happy. I got a little burn today, and it only took, all I did was sit out there on that chair, and at first it was a little overcast, and it was a little bit of sprinkles, right, to the east, which would be towards California. And then I'm communicating with the sun, right, and putting my diamond pink rose heart up with the sun, trying to get the sun's attention, and I did, and so it began. You could see the light really beginning to expand and break through, open the clouds up, right, with a larger halo, right, and I was sitting there without my shirt off, just wearing a pair of trunks, swim trunks, and then I could feel its heat. Yeah, there you are. So you're bringing her out, right? Bringing the sun out. and it's like being hit with a strong beam. So I could feel it. Fucking A, that was a strong beam. So you realize when you're running a powerful mirror with a lot of fire, that sun is like, um, you're pulling energy in towards you is what I do. I pull that energy in. So I pulled in, and it was hot. It was very hot. And that didn't only took a very short period of time when I experienced that, and I realized, whoop. And then I got up and I started walking, and then when I went inside, I realized I burned myself. So it didn't take long for that to happen. So when Bill O'Reilly, who lives over on Long Island, right, and I've been to Long Island. My mother grew up. My mother was born in Toronto, Canada, but was adopted. Both my mother and her sister were adopted by the Charlie Waters family. Charlie Waters worked for Simpson, Spence and Young, and lived in a penthouse overlooking Park Avenue in New York City. So when they adopted my mother, they brought her to New York City. Sent my mother to England, put her through what was known as a finishing school, because my grandfather, Charlie Waters, had worked his way up from being a stock clerk for Simpson, Spence and Young, which, if it's true, I was told that they're the largest shipbroking company in the world, because one of the members on the board was King Edward's bride, I guess. I believe he's homosexual, but I don't know. I was just told that Wallace Simpson is gay, if you will, but married to King Edward at the time. You know, King Edward of Britain. Yeah, that dude. And so my father grandfather had a penthouse up there, and he used to have me up when I was a little kid, just a little tyke up on his knee. I do remember that. And my grandmother, Elizabeth. And so my mother went to finishing school because she was therefore now around elite people with a lot of bucks, right? My mother had furs. My mother had, she got used. That's a lifestyle. You now being just like what they do with the native indigenous people, right? Is whatever spiritual practices were held in your cellular memories now get sort of out of sight, out of mind. Now you're running a different program. Now you're loading into memory what's being loaded into memory to live a completely different way. It was all based on a material life, a social life, a money-driven life. So, at least I did as a child, money isn't going to buy you love, right? And if love is what you're looking for, then we're the ones that provide it, because that's what healing does. So that's why when I was a teenager, I could see girls that I were in the same high school as me gravitating towards that program. Is that it's everything that's in the material, in the mirror, not who you are through your heart and your soul. Experiencing love in your heart, right? And so you're experiencing being in a state of love and joy because the energy is higher to experience that frequency. Right? So you see how Madison Avenue and how all that programming works. So my mother herself was a part of that whole scene, but my mother was a very generous, kind, forgiving, equally distribution type of beautiful spirit. My mother was a human angelic. Obviously, I picked my parents. And so my mother shared everything she had, even though she had more than most, with other people, which means she didn't live in fear. She didn't hold on to energy. Okay, she always gave money to charities, and she made sure that all of her children, of which I'm one, were all equally loved. Equally. There's not one thing my mother would do for my two older sisters that she'd do for me or my brother. My mother was an angel. I cried for her all the time because of how beautiful she was to be through, because of all the trauma that I know that she went through. So it's always about sending healing energy to bring love and joy back into their spirit, Because when you're a little kid, you already know how many beings are being held captive because they haven't healed, and how much resistance they're actually experiencing of the amount of energy that is held in their record and their cellular memories that haven't been cleared. So that all their cellular memories and all their circuits are now running the purest light. They're gone. Those memories are gone. And the purest love will do that. Those memories are gone. They don't exist. They're not supposed to exist. That's not what love is, and that's what the law is. That's how you know. That's how you know the one. So it's always about healing, because wherever you detect the loss of electron in somebody else, you know they need healing. They're not getting enough voltage. Why not? They're always supposed to get enough voltage. Somewhere, some circuit somewhere is broken down. A broken circuit. It's not properly grounded. That's a short in the system somewhere, right? Yep. Like a broken wire, you know, in your vehicle. Some rat climbed. I used to experience that. I had a Toyota that I used to take all through the backwoods, and it wouldn't take long, okay, for either a rat or a chipmunk, usually rats, you know, field rats, field mice or field rats that'll climb up into your motor compartment, engine compartment, and then burrow into your air conditioning system near the back side of your glove compartment and make a home. And during the day, we'll go into your vehicle, look just like a bird does, to make a nest. And if you got any paper or tissue paper sitting around, any useful materials that it can use to make a little home, it'll grab it. So it decided to make a home in my vehicle, right? And I drove it around all over the place. And it finally left and ended up probably in some other forest in another state, right? So it's got a new home. But it's a forest from whence it came, right? So it's sort of like that, you know, and they nibble on a wire. So that's like a central nervous system. It's got a short in it. The nerve fibers are shorting out. Burn the bulb out. That's a death spiral. A Death Star. It's losing power. So when it's losing power, it's falling consciousness. Fallen spirit. Fallen motherboard. Broken. So motherboard fixers got to know how to come in and fix a motherboard. Bring power back in. So when I was a kid, I always thought of it as, hey, this room's dark in here. What's in here? You're not going to know unless you turn the light on. Hey, put some light on the subject. Just like my dad used to tell me, put some light on that subject. Now you know. And that's exposure. So when pure light comes in, you're connected to the biggest pipe there is. The one is here. Right? So you're bringing one with you. The one is with you. And so you realize that your heart and your soul, your shield is automatically up. Your heart shield is automatically up as soon as your antenna is up and running. Mine was at 4 years of age, heart is up, heart shield is up. It's almost like nobody has to tell you. It's like you detect it because you're hypersensitive to any energetic environment that you're in. You're a polarity integrator, because the hyperspeed and the hypersensitivity is letting you know, because your antennas, the frequencies that you're picking up, are letting you know. That's the communication. You're translating a coded environment, a matrix. What's going on in here? But what it really is, when you're an artist and musician, it's the music, which is the math and the geometry and the form and the flow of that energy. What does it feel like? So, when it comes to making music, that's what it is. It's the flow of that music. Master conductors, so the highest conductor, the highest honor there is in the entire cosmos is honoring the fastest accelerator of electrons, which is the one, which is absolute love. So that's the law. So that's the highest honor. So that's living in the highest truth, is experiencing absolute love through your own heart and soul. Because now you're not afraid to tell the truth about anything that you've experienced. That's right. Because you already know that everything that you experienced was recorded. It's on a permanent record. So if you don't believe that, then you're living in a lie. Okay? Because love is what the truth is. Love is like a permanent recording. That's Cosmina Records. They don't lie. So the one always knows the truth. That's 100% access.